So I wanted to talk today about something that kind of came up this week, and that's dynos. Um, a lot of people out there have a lot of different information on dynos and how they work, such as a dyno jet compared to a Mustang, to every other different brand that's out there right now. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the numbers too much. A dyno is more specifically a tool for measuring the work that you're doing. It's not for, no offense to anybody, it's not for measuring your ego. It's for measuring the work that you're completing. So when you take a stock setup and you start doing modifications to it, it's always good just to get a baseline. Number one, the part of the country that you live in is going to make a huge difference, whether it's cold, hot, humid, dry, low altitude, or in my case, high altitude, where we have almost 20% less oxygen. It's 20% less horsepower for sure. So, but anyway, so use it as a tool. So keep in mind, when you start building for high horsepower and you're putting on bigger heads with bigger intake valves, whether it's a 202 or a 208 intake valve, bigger cam, yes, you're going to make more horsepower. No, the torque is not going to be higher. It's going to come to a point where it levels off, and both of them slide back and forth, because there really is no such thing as horsepower. Horsepower is simply a mathematical calculation of the torque that you're making. So the more torque you make, and the more torque that you design for, the better off you're going to be with your application, specifically if it's heavy. Now in my case, it's a different with, like, say, my race bike. I do want more torque on my bike, but I also want the horsepower on the top end to go up the hill. But I think a lot of people can get too hung up on what a dyno will put out. So for example, you take a bone stock 360 making 340, 350 foot-pounds of torque. You put it on the dyno, and let's say on an engine dyno, it's putting out 220 horsepower, like the old 318, 360 days. Well, you get on the dyno and you see about 170 rear wheel. That's your horsepower. But you still see about 310, 320 torque. Well, a lot of people don't realize is that torque number really is actually closer to what you're making at the flywheel. The horsepower number's not, but the torque number is. And that's just the weird, odd way that Dynojet did their calculations a long time ago. So for someone to think they're making another 22 to 30% torque on top of that is usually not the case. They'll get really disappointed when you take that engine out and you put it on the engine dyno and it doesn't show that. So don't get too hung up on the numbers. Same thing with horsepower calculators. I use Performance Trends. They're a great company. Shout out to them. And I use it as a guideline. You know, I don't expect my numbers to be exactly what it says there. I get them close, and then I start moving my intake runner length and my plenum height calculations inside of there with whatever cam the customer has and headers. And I use it as a guideline, you know, which one produces this most amount of torque that I can get. And same thing, I'll punch like a performance injection equipment. I'll put their head and their flow numbers inside the Performance Trends calculator, and it's pretty darn accurate. And it's been a handy tool for me. And I just use it as a guideline, and it helps me know whether or not I'm keeping a guy set up a 14-inch runner, a 13-inch runner, or a 12-inch runner, depending on what the person's trying to do. If they're racing a lightweight Dakota on sandboggers up a hill, then absolutely, they're going to have shorter runners. If they're towing a heavy vehicle, or if it's already in a heavy vehicle and they're towing another heavy vehicle, then it's going to have a longer runner. Simple as that. Just going to shoot for building the torque. So don't get too hung up on that. So remember exactly what you're looking for when you go to a dyno. You're looking for a change. I want to see the before and the after. I don't really care where those numbers lay. If they're way down here, that's cool. If they're way down here, that's cool. Doesn't matter. So I mean, try to look at the difference that you're making between what you did before and after. That's really what you want to do. The same thing goes with flow calculations. When I do my flow bench and my manometer, I'm simply looking for a before and an after, and I get a reference every time I start. So I start first with a base reference, and then go again because I know the weather and the altitude is going to change. It's going to change my numbers, you know, leave me scratching my head. So I don't get too caught up in it. So anyway, so there you go. I'm getting set up with the sign plate here to do a stage 2 kegger here for a customer, and it's gonna be a long Saturday. And now it's getting cold, so it's gonna start snowing. So now the heater has to be on in here. So anyway, peace out. Take care, guys.